Assalamualaikum and good day. My name is Siti Iziani Nadirah binti Muhammad Nazili. I am from SR1133D2. Today, me and my friends would like to present about basic energy system. I am the first presenter. The second one is Afrina Batrisha. The third one is Muhammad Irfan Fitri. And the last one is Muhammad Anwar Rushdi. So I would like to start it with energy. As we know, if a muscle contract, we need energy. It needs energy. Any muscle contraction, it requires energy. And this is energy for cellular activity. Carbohydrate to glucose in blood, glycogen in liver, triglycerides or fats is in fatty acids, and proteins to amino acids. And this energy is transferred from food sources to ATP via phosphorylation. And these food sources are broken down via catabolism to be used by cells. The carbohydrate and glycogen, the carbohydrate consists of glucose and glycogen. It is storage form of glucose in liver and muscles. An example example of carbohydrate is used when needed the most, like you be running from a dog, something like that. Next is fats. Fats is a low intensity activities. It is consists of triglycerides and fatty acid. It is storage form of fat in muscle and adipose tissue. The last one is proteins, but protein is not a primary energy sources during exercise. The common one is carbohydrate and fats. So the fuels for exercise, the body uses fats for energy. Fats is a main source of energy, and but proteins provides a little energy for cellular activity, but serves as building blocks for the body's tissue, repair and excreted as waste. And during mild to severe muscular effort, the body relies mostly on carbohydrate for fuel. So now I would like to explain about ATP. ATP is adenosine triphosphate. It is a high energy compound for storing and conserving energy. It consists of adenine, ribose, and 3-link phosphate. ATP components is adenine is nitrogenous base as a nitrogenous base. Ribose is a 5-carbon sugar, and phosphate group is a chain of 3. The enzyme of ATPase can weaken and break last PO4 bond, releasing energy and free PO4. And the last phosphorylation is energy from becomes an energy from cellular respiration. So this is the process of breakdown. It is a breakdown or hydrolysis. ATP plus H2O and becomes ADP plus P1 plus energy. The process is the process by ATPase. And the second one is synthesis or removal of H2O. It is ADP plus P1 to ATP. This process is to make or build something. So this is the movement classification. It has a quick, which is high intensity, reduce is a moderate, and reduce light to low. Quick movement is just less a few seconds, and reduce speeds less for several minutes, and reduce intensity for about 50%, less for several hours. And our body uses different energy system for each activity. It is not all the same. And the cellular energy is also depends on duration of supplying energy, and also intensity, how much energy is generated. That's all from me. Now I will pass to Afrina to continue for the next slide. Thank you.
Every physical movement relies on the compound adenosine triphosphate or ATP. ATP is stored in the muscle. It is immediately available to produce movement. However, storage of ATP in the muscles are limited. So, any movement that lasts longer than a few seconds needs more ATP to be produced. Our body has three energy systems that can produce ATP. ATP PCR system, the glycolytic system or lactic acid system, and the oxidative system. Okay, the first energy, ATP PCR, is an aerobic system, meaning oxygen does not require to produce ATP, and there is no lactate produced for the byproducts. During short sustained power movement or any quick burst such as 100-meter sprint, ATP will provide the energy alone for a few seconds, with compound called creatine phosphate or PCR offering ATP for another few seconds. Like ATP, PCR also limited, so this system can provide energy for movement 10 to 15 seconds. This will produce energy quickly but not over longer duration. Recovery takes 2 to 6 minutes. Okay, we're gonna talk how this ATP PC system works. Alright, so what you all see here is an ATP molecule, adenosine with a triphosphate, 3-phosphate. So how our muscles immediately get energy is just to break this phosphate bond right here, and that will produce energy immediately to do something like cross bridge cycle within 2 or 3 seconds. Within the 4 to 10 seconds, phosphocreatine will break its bonds, which allow the another phosphate to reform with this ADP, so that we can re-establish ATP to be used for energy. And this is the system used within the first 10 seconds of high intensity activity. After 10 seconds, it's kind of bursts out, and then something like an aerobic glycolytic system takes over. Next, glycolytic system. This system does not require oxygen to produce ATP, but there is lactate and hydrogen produced for the byproducts. The glycolytic system lasts longer than the ATP PCR. It requires high intensity activity, but usually not more than 3 minutes. For example, 400-meter run. The anaerobic glycolysis lactic acid system is dominant from about 10 to 30 seconds during a maximal effort. It replenishes very quickly over this period and produces 2 ATP molecules per glucose molecules. This glycolytic system relies on glucose, which is one of the basic forms of carbohydrates which circulate in the bloodstream, while glycogen is a stored form of glucose in the muscles and liver. This glucose or glycogen is broken down to create ATP through a process called glycolysis. During this energy supply process, a substance called lactate is formed and hydrogen ions are released. The accumulations of hydrogen ion in the muscles cause the muscle become more acidic, leading to fatigue and burning sensation. Recovery can last from 20 seconds to 3 minutes, depending on duration and intensity of the exercise. How does lactate form? During the process of glycolysis, hydrogen ions are released into the muscle cells. These hydrogen get transported to mitochondria. Without oxygen, hydrogen cannot enter mitochondria. This hydrogen is then taken back to the pyruvate acid which forms lactic acid. What does lactate do? If a muscle becomes too acidic, muscle stop functioning as the enzyme not able to function. The lactate that is removed from the muscle is carried to the surrounding muscle that have oxygen available and also to the liver. Then lactate is converted back to the pyruvate or glucose for further glycolysis and energy production via the aerobic energy system Cori cycle. Now, hydrogen and electron transport molecules. So the full name of NAD is nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, while FAD is flavin adenine dinucleotide. Okay, both NAD and FAD is an electron transporter. In this case, it transports hydrogen ion. That's why it binds themselves with hydrogen ion. In cases of availability of oxygen, which is aerobic, both NADH and FADH will go through aerobic system to create more ATPs. But in cases where there is no availability of oxygen, it will turn pyruvic acid into lactic acid.
Thank you Afrina. Assalamualaikum. My name is Muhammad Irfan Fitri Abu Bakar. So now I present about glycolytic, which is lactic anaerobic. Okay, the first one is glycolysis, which is for breakdown of glucose and maybe anaerobic or aerobic. Secondly, glycogenesis. It's a process by which glycogen is synthesized from glucose to be stored in the liver. Thirdly, glycogenolysis, which is process by which glycogen is broken into glucose 1-phosphate to be used by muscles. And lastly is gluconeogenesis, which is formation of glucose from non-carbohydrate source, which is liver. Next, oxidative system. First is aerobic glycolysis, second is Krebs cycles, and third electron transport chain. So this is a diagram of mitochondria. Have two stages. Stage 1 is cytosol glycolysis, and stage 2 inner membrane, which is electron transport systems. And Krebs cycles occurs here in stage 2. Oxidative system are relies on oxygen to break down fuels for energy, and it's produce ATP in mitochondria of cells, and it yield much more energy, which is ATP, than anaerobic systems, and working sub maximally at 60 to 80% of maximum effort. And it's endurance events, and it's also involve aerobic glycolysis and fat oxidation. This is the diagram of mitochondria and Krebs cycles. So first, glucose will undergo a glycolysis process, then ATP will be used. Okay, after that, glucose will become pyruvate, and when pyruvate enters the mitochondria, it will undergo pyruvate oxidation. So we look at the acetyl-CoA, which is an enzyme that will speed up chemical reactions. Hydrogen in the cell combines with two coenzymes, which is NAD+ and FAD+, that carry it to the electron transport chains, and Krebs cycles will produce ATP. Okay, the next one is diagram of Krebs cycles. Two carbons enter in the acetyl fragment of acetyl-CoA, and it produces CO2. And coenzymes are reduced, which is 3 NADH and 1 FADH2 are produced, and then 1 ATP molecule is produced by substrate level phosphorylation. After that, oxaloacetic acid is generated, and for every glucose molecule split during glycolysis, 2 acetyl fragments are produced. Thus, it takes 2 turns of the cycles to complete the oxidation of glucose. 6 NADH and 2 FADH2 per glucose carry high energy electrons to the electron transport chain, where ATP is produced by chemiosmosis. And lastly, most of the ATP output of respiration results from this oxidative phosphorylation. Okay, the next one is electron transport chain. NADH and FADH2 donate electrons. NADH and FADH2 donate electrons to the electron transport chain. Electrons are passed from one electron carrier to another, which is redox reaction. As electrons are passed, energy is released, and energy is used to pump H plus by proton pump, and from the matrix into the intermembrane space, electrons drop in free energy, and the final electron acceptor is oxygen. So the next one is oxidation of fats. First one is lipolysis, which is for breakdown of triglycerides into glycerol, and free fatty acids. Free fatty acids are broken down in the mitochondria into acetic acid and convert to acetyl CoA. Acetyl CoA enters the Krebs cycles and the electron transport chain. And lastly, fat oxidation requires more oxygen and generates more energy than carbohydrate oxidation. And that's all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Anwar Rushdi. Thank you, Irfan. So we go to my slide. You can see process. Triglycerides are break down into fatty acid, then fatty acid turn into activated fatty acid. Activated fatty acid will go through the fatty acid oxidation, which is it will be beaten to acetyl CoA, and another thing, it will the fatty acid oxidation will give one molecule of FADH2 and one molecule of NADH. You can see acetyl CoA we go to the citric acid cycle. Next, protein metabolism. Body uses little protein during rest and exercise, less than 5% to 10%. Some amino acids, BCCA, which is branch chains of amino acid that form proteins, can be converted into glucose. So the oxygen role in oxidative system. First, conversion of pyruvic acid to acetyl CoA. Second, conversion of free fatty acids to acetyl CoA. Third, allows the Krebs cycle and electron transport chain to occur. Fourth, oxygen combines the remaining carbon to form carbon dioxide, which is CO2, in the Krebs cycle, and oxygen accepts the electrons at the end of the electron transport chain and bind with proton, which is H plus, to form water used in the muscles. We go to the estimate anaerobic. Estimate of anaerobic is you can see a lactate threshold. Lactate threshold is the point at which blood lactate begins repeatedly accumulates above resting level during exercise. So you can see the graph. Okay, you can see the during the increased intensity, when they reach the some point, you can see the blood lactate will spike or escalate. So we go to the rest to exercise transition. You can see the graph when they start exercise and before resting. When they start exercise, the oxygen will deficit. So then we reach to the oxygen requirement when how much do you need oxygen for reach the steady state of for the steady state oxygen consumption. Then when end exercise, the curve will decrease. The part is epoch, which is epoch is excess post oxygen consumption. So we need to know about epoch. So we go to the next slide. Epoch is excess post oxygen consumption. The purpose is for oxygen stores replace. Second, lactic acid remove, and third is ATP replenish. So lastly, we can see lactate used as fuel source during exercise. First, it can be used as a fuel source by skeletal muscles and the heart. Second, it can be converted to glucose in the liver. And lastly, lactate shuttle. So that's all from me. Thank you.